Alright, hello, wonderful Drawing 2 students. Here we are. This is so strange, but here we are. This is my first video demo for you guys, and we're gonna get through it, and it's gonna be awesome. So far, all we've done is additive value. Well, we started out with gestures, then line, and then additive value, and now, as you know, we're moving into subtractive drawing. And what does that mean? Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. Additive value drawing that we've been doing before is where you have a blank white surface and you add your media to it to make the value drawing. You build up onto that blank white surface. For subtractive drawing, you are erasing from a toned surface. You are subtracting from it. However, we will use a process of both additive and subtractive by nature. You have to keep adding media and subtracting it. So that's where we are, and we are doing charcoal. So for materials, which hopefully you still have at home, I'll just say this, if any of the stuff you don't have, you just work with what you got, because we're not leaving the house, we're not going anywhere to go buy anything, nobody's open anyway, you're just doing what you can at home. And maybe that just means you get creative if you don't have charcoal at home, okay? So, but hopefully you do, you should. So, we're going to talk about materials first. So what do you need? What you need for this charcoal subtractive drawing is some vine. This is some really nice vine that I've got from, somebody donated this to me a while back. It's really, really nice stuff. But, so you're just going to take a piece of your vine, you're going to break a piece off, and you keep breaking pieces off as you need it. So you need some vine, preferably soft vine. For this list here, we need, these are charcoal pencils. You should have these at home. Again, we might not necessarily get to these today, and I'm not too worried about that. We will be using them in the future. I'd rather take baby steps anyway, but just so you know, what you have in your pack, you should have gotten a series, and it goes on the same kind of hierarchy as the graphite pencils, but it's just a lot less in the hierarchy for charcoal. So for the charcoal we have, I'll take this one out. You really only have 3. You have a hard one, you have a hard charcoal pencil. Don't worry about using that for this, because it's just not going to show up on a toned surface. It will show up on a blank white surface. So you should have something like that. Hopefully you can read that. Medium, soft, and extra soft is what you're looking for. Okay? And that goes in the same order as it sounds as far as softness. So, and then what you'll need are a ton of erasers. A lot of different kind of erasers. Whatever erasers you have at your disposal, use those. Even if you have like the end of a mechanical pencil, those erasers are really useful. If you don't have these kinds of erasers, you will definitely need a kneaded. Hopefully you have that. This is what they look like brand new. They come in this kind of little packet here. And then for, sorry, oh, here I am touching my face, guys. My hair falls in my eyes and makes my eyes itch. A white Mars eraser. I have a new one here. However, I usually buy these like Factus ones. But any kind of a white eraser will work well for big areas of pulling out white. We might not use that for this drawing, but maybe we will. And then I have a series of stick erasers that I've bought over the years. If you're willing to order stuff, you really can only order these, although I have seen them in Dick Blick before, but at the store. These are called Mono Zero erasers. So there's one that's got like a really, if you can see that, it's got like a really rectangular small point. This one's really, really small. And then we have a TUFF Stuff stick eraser. However, if you don't have any of these, that's okay. The end of a mechanical pencil will help as well. Or if you have just one of these guys, you can cut it up and be whatever you want. If you have a blade or an X-Acto blade or something like that. Okay. We will also be needing something to blend the vine with, because we're about to tone our paper here in a second. So hopefully you guys have some kind of paper towel you can use at home, or Kleenex or something. That's very useful. That's what I'll use today because I know that's what you have at home. However, I do want to show you what I use for my professional drawings, and I use a different process for my subtractive drawings, and I just kind of want to share that with you real quick. What I use for my media, I don't use vine to lay down my tone. What I use is a thing called powdered charcoal, and it's in this little bag because it's really dirty. It's a powdered version of the vine, and last I checked you can't order this stuff, which is kind of a bummer, but so I have a ton of that. And then to blend it around, what I use are these, they're gesso brushes. So they're really just like nice paint brushes, like house paint brushes that you can see have been dirtied up with charcoal over the years. So I might pull those out and use those for our demo today, but maybe not. The other thing you'll need is obviously a sheet of your paper and some tape to tape it up to your board, or you could just leave it in your drawing pad, that's fine too. But I have taped it up to my board so that I can have it on my easel here. Alright, so let's get started. As you can see, chosen a very poignant thing to draw. What I'm going to tell you to do to draw for this drawing is something opaque, a simple object that's opaque in your house. By all means, this is perfectly fine and actually kind of fun to draw. I did one earlier and it's actually kind of fun. So poignant, funny, and it'll be fun. Okay. So again, we are going to draw from a toned surface. So first we need to tone our paper. You're going to take a piece of vine charcoal, you're going to hold it on its side, and you're going to tone your paper. Now, usually when people teach this, they teach you to tone the entire paper. I'm going to tell you, you don't need to do that. Save your charcoal. Only tone what you need. So I'm just going to tone this area right here, because notice I have this horizontal because this is an overall horizontal thing. Let me bring this up a little bit. And you know what? You don't have to tone your whole paper. It's actually kind of fun when you don't, because you can leave kind of like cool marks on the side. Sorry, that's really loud. You can leave kind of like cool. Oh, wow. I wasn't doing that earlier. Cool, like, gesture marks, you know, on the side. So it kind of makes it a little bit more active. And then you're going to take your paper towel, or whatever you have, if all you have is toilet paper, well, you're not using that, or Kleenex or something. You're going to use that. If you have a gesso brush to use that. And you're just going to blend it around. Notice that I've kind of made a little flat part here. So I can blend that around like this. So we're just going to blend that. Man, I feel like Bob Ross. Awesome. Happy dreams. We need Bob Ross now more than ever. Oh my gosh. Alright. So we have a nice like medium gray here, which is great. Alright, and then we're ready to start. We're going to start with our vine. Because the reason for that is because this is really easy to move around, especially on a toned surface. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a gesture, and I'm going to kind of notice that I'm using my whole arm again. We're going back to the gesture. I'm kind of giving myself an idea of that top there, an idea of what this is going on over here, and I have this little piece kind of folded down. Do you see how much I'm moving? I'm not spending any one time on any area. We're still using that active gesture part here. And we're just gonna start with that gesture, and then we're going to, oh, one material I forgot to tell you that you still need is your citing stick. Hopefully you didn't lose it. You can always use pencil though. Because we're definitely gonna use this to measure and to make sure we have things measured out right. Okay, so see how quick that was? Really quick gesture of an idea of what this is. And then I'm gonna go in and develop a little bit more. And so I'm going to take some time to measure a little bit. Okay, we have one this way, 1.5. So I went one this way, 1 and a half this way. I'm sorry. That's pretty close. It might be a little bit wider. I kind of like this object anyway. It's pretty simple. Remember that ellipse situation though, that the closer this top is to my eye level, the thinner this is going to be. I've kind of tried to position myself pretty relative to what you're probably going to be doing at home. So I have my stool and use an easel if you have one, but I know you probably don't have one. You're probably going to be doing this on a flat table. I actually don't have a flat table that I can use here, so this is what I got. But be mindful of where this top is compared to where your eye level is. Remember that from perspective. The closer it is to your eye level, my eye level's right up here, the flatter that's going to be. But because I'm looking pretty far down on it, it's a little bit wider. Now, if I were to stand up and draw this, that's almost a full circle. So it's just things to keep in mind. And remember that this bottom one will have a deeper ellipse than the top because it's getting farther from my eye level. Not that much different, but it is a little different. Okay, pretty simple, right? Simple charcoal. Alright, and then this is where I'm going to start to use my citing stick because I'm going to check these angles. Checking the angle of this thing, checking the angle of this thing right here, checking this side. I know I don't have that right. So I think this comes out farther to bend and meet that. And this comes in a little bit because this piece is kind of coming out. Okay, now, so far I haven't needed to move anything around, but I will. Now, you can't erase anything, right? What happens when you make a mistake? That's the biggest question that people have when they first start out with subtractive drawing. Well, what happens when I make a mistake? Because you'll see, look, I made a mistake here, and I try and erase it. Now I've just made that lighter than everything else. I've indicated that that's a highlight. Well, that's not right. So you need to blend it back into the background, right? Now, you can use your paper towel and just kind of make a little tip there if you need to get in somewhere and blend it back into the background. Over the years, I've kind of used different tools for this, and I've adapted, again, just smaller brushes for when I need to kind of blend something back in. So for instance, in here I do need to blend this back into the background because it's just not right. And you'll see that's really just erasing it. Now if I had like big areas, I can go and use my nifty little gesso brush. So this really makes me feel like Bob Ross. This is what he used. This might be a Bob Ross. No. I did have a Bob Ross brush, but I don't have it anymore. You know, because because he sells those like little master packs, you know. I'm sure some of you guys have those at home, but it's actually a really good brush for using with charcoal, actually. Anyway, so alright. And then I'm gonna check and see I'm using my sighting stick and I'm checking the angle between this and this, because I'm looking at it here and I know it's not right. I know it's not right. Look at that. See, it's supposed to come all the way down to there, and I'm not doing that. Or what if I made this smaller? Because I know that it needs to be wider, so I could just make it shorter, and that will make it wider. Okay, that looks a little bit better, so let me try that again. That's closer, but still has to come farther down. And I will check this angle again. And this one. And this one's still like that. So see all this? Now I'm gonna blend that back in. And I'll use a paper towel and kind of show you how. Blame that in the way. See that? Getting closer to object here. Okay, now let's see here. Okay, so first thing you're gonna do is gesture, get an idea of the object on the page, get an idea of all the shapes. So I went ahead and I just kind of generally drew out all the shapes of this thing. The next thing you have to do, because this is a value drawing, you're drawing out your value shapes. Because you need to know where you're putting your value once you start to pull it out with subtractive drawing and lay it down, right? Okay. So I'm going to take some time to do that, and I think I might just fast forward through this part. This is one thing I always forget to mention during subtractive drawings, is that you can't touch the paper. I always forget to mention that because I've conditioned myself that I know that I can't do that. However, you're going to do that because you're not very, you haven't done this a lot. So your natural tendency is put your hand right on the page, and we don't want to do that because, here, I'll do it over here. You see what it just did, and this. So if I keep doing that, I'm just going to smear this whole drawing. I'm just going to really be frustrated. That's okay if you do that because you need to experience it. But and I just want to say, if that happens, don't freak out. That's fine. But do need to get in the discipline of when you do subtractive drawings, you can't put your hand on the page. So you might have noticed that I was doing this, where I was leaning. This is actually a pretty thick stick, and they have little tools for that, where you can do that. Rest your hand on something, because I'm drawing these little ridges because I think it's going to be really fun to draw. So to do that with a steady hand, that's what I'm doing there. So I just want to mention that as best you can, don't put your hand on the page. Okay. All right. So I spent quite a bit of time, as you can see, drawing all these little lines. You can get as detailed as that as if you want. You have to spend a minimum of 3 hours on this drawing. So that took me not that long. Notice that I used vine charcoal for that, and that's because, as you could see, I was moving stuff around the whole time. that you can't very easily do with the charcoal pencils. The charcoal pencils we'll be using for details at the end there. So I am ready to start addressing value. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a kneaded eraser, and we've gone over these and what they do and their purpose and how they work. And I am going to assess the most bright areas right now. And I have a nice direct light coming from this side right here. And I'm going to say, hopefully you are able to do that as well, that you're able to put a lamp next to your object or something else, or next to a window or something like that, because you want a really strong light source for this. Okay, so I'm going to work on this side because that's where this light is coming from. So I'm going to start by, I actually want to do a really big, probably shouldn't have drawn all that out, but I really want to pull a lot of it out right now, but I'm not able to because I spent so much time on that. Let's go over here. No, we'll go back here. This nice strong highlight all the way over here. Do you notice how much I'm moving this around in my hand? Every time I make a mark, I'm moving it around in my hand again because I need to clean it. And I need it to be a specific point. And every time I make a mark, put it back in my hand to mold it back into something else. And every time I'm making this sharp point, because that's where I'm at right now, what I'm doing. If I was doing a big area, so let's just do that real quick. So I'm going to pull out a lot of light over here, and I can redraw all that. Well, that's no big deal. To do that, I think I've shown you this before. I'm going to make a blunt side here. So it's nice and flat, so you're not going to get any bumps on the page that are going to make weird. It's not going to pull an even amount out. I want to pull an even amount out. So I'm going to clean this again. Do that again. Remembering all of the zones of value, right? We have highlight where it's hitting it. The light is hitting it most directly, which is happening over here. We have light, where the light is starting to give, I don't know how well you can see this, but light is starting to give way to shadow. Then we have shadow, which is right before core shadow. Core shadow is happening right here. And then reflected light is back there. And the same is true for around this right here. I would call this area on top shadow, because the light is giving way to the shadow right here. We want to work general to specific. So I drew all those lines because I thought it would be better for me, but I'm going to pull all that light out and then redraw those lines. Okay, so you'll notice that I just started to take my vine again, and I'm adding in the darks. Now, because this is an overly white object, I don't have a lot of really dark darks. However, the object that you might have a lot of really dark darks in it, so be looking for that. Keep in mind all of the steps of, or the zones of value. Remember all those. We have the highlight, the light, shadow, core shadow, reflected light, and then the cast shadow. And that core shadow is that biggest, or the darkest part of the object, the darkest area of value. So I have a core shadow going on right here. But again, it's not very dark because my object is white. But it is darker than what's around it. So I'll add that value in, and saw how I did that was in that direction because this is going around like this. Same for over here. There's a core shadow right there, but it's not that dark. So sometimes when you go in with your paper towel, it actually lifts stuff off. So it's not, see that? It kind of lifts some charcoal off of there. So it doesn't act as harsh as an eraser does when pulling things out, because when you use an eraser, it gets bright white. Okay, so I'm going to spend some time going back and forth between pulling out lights and adding darks, and I just want you to watch how I do that, and I'll probably fast forward through a lot of it. But watch how I'm doing that. And you don't necessarily have to be as detailed as this. I'm honestly just kind of geeking out on the ridges because I thought they would be kind of cool to draw. But I'm probably going to blend a lot of that out so you don't see it as much. But again, you're spending 3 hours on this, so add as much detail as you can, but don't stress out over it. And so yeah, I'm going to get to work on that. Alright, I'm pulling out one of these because I'm needing it to clean my eraser a little bit. Remember these guys? They're little sandpaper blocks. Alright, and then when I'm thinking about my shadows, I'm thinking about occlusion shadow. Remember, that's the shadow right underneath the object. Right here, right underneath the object. Oops, I touched it. And I have 2 points right here and right here, and you can't see this from where you are, but this little piece is wrapping around and hitting the table right there. So I have an occlusion shadow on this side, right here, and on underneath these guys right here, where they're touching the table. So, and I have a lot of different kind of cast shadows going on, which is making it kind of interesting. So I'm moving from using the tip of my fine charcoal to the side because I have big, long, sweeping areas. So I want to do that very quickly. And this is getting all clunky in there, so I don't like it. I don't like it. So I'm going to lift this up a little bit. Yeah. It's a little bit better. So then that occlusion shadow spreads out to this cast shadow here, which is coming around and going this way. So I wonder if I can do that. And it's coming this way. Well, it's kind of distracting, but all right. So I think we're nearing the end of this little guy here. I mean, I could fiddle with it for a while. It's nice getting back to drawing after all this craziness. I don't know, there's something really soothing about it. Notice how I didn't draw every little striation of the toilet paper? Like, that's just not necessary. I mean, I could have, for, like, if this were a trompe l'oeil piece, I would spend the time to do striations and things, but it's just not necessary for this piece, this particular piece. And yeah, like I said, I could fiddle for a while. Another little thing, you probably can't see it, but when you use a stick eraser, these erasers, or the end of a mechanical pencil, something that's a hard white eraser, it's leaving behind little gunky guys. A little tip to get rid of those is your kneaded eraser. So you just get it at that fine little tip, whatever shape you need it to be, and you just literally go in and pick it up. And it gets rid of those. Can't get rid of all of them, but it does a good job. And it basically acts like a sticky thing that it will pick it up for you. So I think I'm about done messing with this guy. I don't know, I keep saying that, but... So, with the charcoal pencils, yeah, I think I might just have you guys use these if you have them. That's fine. If you don't get to it with this drawing, that's fine. But it's useful. So these, I would start with a medium and then work your way up. You really only need to use medium and soft. You could use extra soft in the very dark places, but you really don't need it. You can see this is a medium, and just a little bit does a lot. And the same kind of goes for the principles of using medium soft, extra soft on top of each other, as we did with the graphite pencils. So here, I'll fiddle around with the charcoal pencils for a little bit, and I can fast forward through that as well. Same kind of principle though with what we were doing with the graphite, layering them in different directions when you're doing big value areas, or they are very useful for things like this, and getting in those small little lines. However, you always spend a lot of time doing your groundwork with your vine because, again, you can move it around. This, I cannot move around, okay? I put that there. I can a little bit. I didn't put a lot of pressure on, so I can a little bit, but it's never going to erase completely into the background again. So that's why we don't start out with these, because it just is very stressful for if you're trying to move stuff around. I see so many people who, the first time they try subtractive drawing, and they're so frustrated when they try to just put charcoal pencils on the page, and I'm like, well, there's your problem. Like, you can't move it around. Like, you are your own enemy at that point. You got to use your vine first, and yeah, your hands get a little messy, but look at my hands. They're not that bad. There's not really nothing even on them. It's fine. You're fine. If you're one of those people, you will get over it, but don't think that you can just skip the vine charcoal process because you have charcoal pencils, because they're two totally different things. Charcoal pencils are compressed. Now these are really, really nice for blending. You know, I was doing a lot of blending with my brushes and with the paper towel, but once you start to use this, it really, really brings everything together. You'll notice that I'm leaning back a lot. That's because I want to maintain a good understanding of what this thing looks like. I'm not keeping my face right next to it. I'm leaning back quite a lot. And I would get up and walk back, but I'm connected to the wall. So I have a recorder that's plugged in. So I'm trying to lean back as much as I can. I kind of like this effect where you're adding this kind of detail only in certain areas. I kind of like that effect. So you'll notice I'm just kind of selectively using this. I'm not putting it everywhere, and it's for that reason, because I kind of like the way it looks. Okay. Alright, I think I'm done fiddling with it. Okay, so you're thinking about the process of this piece is that you are, here I'll pull this up so you can see it. Paper, toilet paper, toilet paper. Okay, so you're spending time to do a gesture first. Well, no, sorry, you're toning your paper, blending it, grabbing your vine, doing a gesture, citing to get the correct lines and stuff like that, and then citing to get measurements and angles, and then you are taking time with your vine still to plan out your value exactly how you were doing in additive drawing, so that you have an idea of where you're going to then pull out your lights and lay your darks. And you're going to pull out your lights with your kneaded eraser first, just like I was showing you, and you're going to lay down that dark with your vine. And then as you work adding and subtracting, you're going to then eventually get to details. But you're starting very general and then working very specific. So, okay. So you're doing an opaque object you have at home. Okay. This is very fitting. Go ahead and do this if you want. But you could also just do really any opaque thing. I would, I did, here I'll show you another little one that I did before I landed on the toilet paper idea, because I thought that would be simple enough. I did like a little jar. The only thing with that is just a lot of reflections, and it's a see-through thing, it's a glass thing. If you feel comfortable enough, you can do that, that's fine. It was just like a glass jar. Alright guys, but I think you have what you need to move forward, and please scrub through and watch through from the beginning, and yeah, I'm going to probably fiddle with this a little bit more and post that picture at the beginning of the video. But alright guys, let me know if you have any questions. Alright, bye.